If the first Frozen Synapse was a criminally underrated, excellent strategy game, then its sequel takes both of those elements to their extreme. Even lesser known, with even better gameplay, Frozen Synapse 2 is easily one of my favorite tactics games now. Frozen Synapse 2 takes the amazing tactics parts of the original game, makes slight tweaks and improvements to that base formula, then adds a ridiculously deep meta layer on top of it. If you've never played the first game, it's pretty simple. Each move you make in the game has to be planned out before the turn happens, as are the moves of your opponents. That means that each player, whether AI or human, has to try and predict what the opposing player is going to do. So you'll be looking at a scenario and trying to think, what would be the thing my enemy's going to do? Are they going to send their units behind cover? Do they feel vulnerable? Or do they feel like they have the upper hand right now? Are they going to press the attack? And of course, your enemy's trying to make the same decisions. But while it's an incredibly intense mind game in multiplayer, it still holds up pretty well in single player. Even though you'll eventually come to know the tendencies of the AI, though when it subverts those expectations, it can be quite surprising and simultaneously annoying. And all that is just the tactics game part of this, which remains just as good as it was in the first Frozen Synapse, if not a little bit better. But there's also that meta layer I mentioned earlier, which the game calls City Mode. And the closest thing I can think to compare it to is how Total War games alternate between real-time and turn-based, where the real-time segments are intense battles, and the meta layer is a more grand strategy. Interestingly though, instead of being a purely turn-based affair like Total War, the City Mode inherits some of the really neat things about the game's combat. Namely, you're giving your orders while trying to predict what the other players in the world are going to do simultaneously. There's some level of seeing what they're doing and reacting, since there's much more empty space out on the city map than there is in the cramped quarters of a combat map, but a lot of it's still instinct. And I can certainly say that I want a unit to go intercept another unit on the other side of the map, but while they're making their way over there, something else I need to take care of might pop up. Much like any strategy game in this vein, the world is split into several factions, the twist here being that you're playing the role of a sort of neutral paid police force, and all these factions are giving you money to keep things calm. Mess with any faction too much and they might pull some of your funding, making it harder for you to do what you need to do, but perform tasks for them, and they might throw some more money your way, though it may be at the expense of your reputation with another faction, as all the factions are, of course, constantly in conflict with each other. And getting that money is very important. You'll need it for quite a bit, but most importantly, you'll need it to buy new soldiers, which you'll use to upgrade your initial squad and form entirely new ones. You'll want a good selection of squads roaming the city so you can hold down checkpoints, harass enemy patrols, and still manage to perform mission-critical tasks. Because if you can't perform the main mission, you'll get your funding seriously docked, XCOM style. And there's a lot here that I'm not even touching on. There are layers and layers and layers, more than can be reasonably described in a short video. Suffice it to say that every decision you make in both the battles and in the overworld have dramatic effects on the other half of the game. And the game can be both incredibly rewarding and incredibly frustrating in a way that some people like myself will fall in love with, and others will find completely and utterly infuriating.